Marcus Chen felt his legs shake as he walked through the automatic doors of the general store. He had just finished a 16-hour shift loading cargo containers on Space Station Meridian 7, and every muscle in his body screamed for rest. But rest would have to wait. His baby daughter needed nappies, and he was down to the last one. The store was crowded with aliens of all kinds, tall ones with too many arms, short ones with scales, some that floated instead of walked. Marcus had been working on the station for 8 months now, ever since Earth joined the galactic community, but he still felt out of place. Humans were rare here. Humans with babies were almost unheard of. Lily squirmed in the carrier strapped to his chest. She was 18 months old, with her mother's dark eyes and his stubborn chin. Marcus adjusted the carrier and whispered to her, "Just a few more minutes, sweetheart. Then we can go home." Home was a tiny room barely big enough for a bed and a crib, but it was theirs. After Sarah died in the shuttle accident 6 months ago, Marcus could have sent Lily back to Earth to live with his parents. Everyone said he should. A cargo hauler's salary on a space station was barely enough for one person, let alone a baby. But Marcus refused. Lily was all he had left of Sarah. He would work himself to death before he let anyone take her away. Marcus made his way to the baby section. The nappies were on the top shelf, of course. He reached up and grabbed the cheapest pack. 5 credits. He had exactly 5 credits left in his account. He hadn't eaten in 2 days, but babies needed nappies more than fathers needed food. He walked to the payment terminal at the front of the store. Other shoppers stared at him. A blue-skinned alien with 4 eyes whispered something to her companion. Marcus ignored them. He was used to the stares by now. His hands trembled as he held the pack of nappies. The exhaustion was catching up with him. He needed to eat something soon, but that would have to wait until next week's pay. If he could just make it until then, everything would be fine. Marcus lifted the pack to place it on the scanner. His grip slipped. The pack tumbled from his hands, falling toward the floor. He reached for it, but his tired muscles responded too slowly. A hand caught the pack before it hit the ground. No, not a hand. 4 hands. Marcus looked up and up and up. The woman standing before him was the most striking being he had ever seen. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with skin that shimmered like blue metal in the store's lights. She had 4 arms, each moving with impossible grace. Her face was angular and beautiful in a way that seemed beyond human understanding. But it was her eyes that caught Marcus's attention. They were large and deep purple, and they seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. She wore clothes that Marcus knew cost more than he would earn in 10 years. The fabric seemed to shift colors as she moved. Jewelry that sparkled with real diamonds adorned her wrists and neck. Everything about her screamed wealth and power. "You dropped this," she said. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes in a soft breeze. She spoke perfect English, which surprised Marcus. Most aliens on the station used translation devices. "Thank you," Marcus said. He reached for the pack, but she held it just out of his reach. Not in a mean way, but as if she was examining it. "Nappies for your offspring?" she asked, looking at Lily with curiosity. "Yes, for my daughter." Marcus felt defensive suddenly. "Is there a problem?" "No problem at all." The tall woman tilted her head, studying him with those galaxy eyes. "I was simply observing. We don't see many humans here, and certainly not human fathers with such young children." Marcus took the pack from her hands and turned back to the terminal. He pulled out his credit chip, the one that held his last 5 credits. His hands were still shaking. The woman watched him count out the credits on the screen. Marcus felt her eyes on him, measuring, calculating. He wanted her to look away. He wanted everyone to look away. There was no dignity in being this poor, this desperate. "Is that your last currency?" the woman asked quietly. Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's none of your business." "You haven't eaten recently," she said. It wasn't a question. "I can tell by the way you move. Your body is running on nothing but determination." I said it's none of your business. Marcus's finger hovered over the confirm payment button. Wait, the woman said. She reached past him with one of her 4 arms and canceled the transaction. Before Marcus could protest, she placed her own credit chip on the scanner. I'll pay. Marcus stared at her in shock. What? No, I don't need charity. It isn't charity, she said calmly. The terminal beeped as it approved a payment of 500 credits. She had just paid 100 times what the nappies cost. Consider it an investment. An investment in what? Marcus grabbed the pack of nappies, feeling anger rise in his chest. He was tired and hungry and at the end of his rope, but he still had his pride. I'm not some charity case for rich aliens to feel good about themselves. The woman smiled. It transformed her alien face into something warm and almost familiar. No, you're not a charity case. You're something far more interesting. She gestured toward Lily, who was now staring at the tall alien with wide eyes. I would like to buy you a meal. You and your daughter. In exchange, you will tell me about humans. Why would you want to know about humans? Marcus asked suspiciously. Because I find you fascinating, she said simply. Specifically, I find this fascinating. She pointed at the way Marcus held Lily. Protective and loving even in his exhaustion. The way your species bonds with offspring. It's remarkable. Marcus looked down at Lily. She reached up with one tiny hand and grabbed his nose, giggling. Despite everything, despite the hunger and the exhaustion and the desperation, Marcus felt his heart swell with love. One meal, the woman said. I'll pay for supplies for you and your daughter for an entire month. All you'll have to do is have dinner with me and answer my questions about humanity. Marcus looked at the pack of nappies in his hands, then at his daughter, then at this strange, wealthy alien who wanted to buy him dinner. Every instinct told him to refuse, to maintain his dignity, to handle his own problems. But Lily needed more than nappies. She needed food and clothes and medicine. She needed a father who wasn't half dead from starvation and overwork. What's your name? Marcus asked quietly. The woman smiled again. I am Empress Zatrell of the Vorentine Empire. And you are? Marcus's eyes went wide. An empress. He had just refused charity from an actual empress. I'm Marcus Chen, and this is Lily. Well then, Marcus Chen, Zatrell said. Shall we have dinner? Marcus looked at his daughter one more time. She smiled at him with complete trust and love. For her, he could swallow his pride. Yes, he said, we shall. The restaurant was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Crystal chandeliers hung from a ceiling that showed a projected view of the stars outside the station. Tables floated in mid-air, held by some technology Marcus didn't understand. Every surface gleamed with polish and luxury. Marcus felt completely out of place in his stained work clothes. Other diners, all wealthy aliens in expensive outfits, stared at him as Empress Zatrell led him to a private table in the corner. He could hear their whispers even without understanding their languages. Please, sit, Zatrell said, gesturing to a chair that adjusted itself to Marcus's human proportions. She sat across from him with the fluid grace of water flowing downhill. Lily babbled happily in her carrier, reaching toward the floating lights above their table. She didn't care about luxury or social class. To her, everything was just another wonderful thing to explore. Your daughter is beautiful, Zatrell said, watching Lily with those deep purple eyes. What is her designation? Her name, Marcus corrected gently. We call them names, not designations. Her name is Lily. Lily, Zatrell repeated, testing the word. Like the earth flower? Yes, my wife loved lilies. Marcus felt the familiar ache in his chest. She died 6 months ago in a shuttle accident. I'm sorry for your loss, Zatrell said, and Marcus was surprised to hear what sounded like genuine sympathy in her voice. Yet you kept the child. You didn't send her to other family members to raise? She's my daughter, Marcus said firmly. I'm her father. That's not something you just give away because it's difficult. Zatrell leaned forward, all four of her hands resting on the table. That's what interests me. Your species has this concept of parental duty that seems almost irrational. You sacrifice your own well-being for offspring. You work yourself to exhaustion for them. Why? Marcus blinked in surprise. Because we love them. Don't your people love their children? No, Zatrell said simply. The word hung in the air between them like a stone. A waiter arrived, a floating spherical alien that spoke through a translation device. Zatrell ordered in a language Marcus didn't recognize. The waiter bobbed and floated away. I don't understand, Marcus said. How can you not love your own children? Zatrell's expression became distant. My people, the Vorentines, evolved differently than humans. Millions of years ago, we discovered artificial reproduction. We created facilities where offspring are grown, educated, and raised by professionals. Parents contribute genetic material but rarely meet their offspring. We believed this was more efficient, more logical. That's terrible, Marcus said before he could stop himself. Perhaps, Zatrell said, not offended, but it allowed us to become one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. We eliminated the inefficiency of emotional attachment. We removed the chaos of family structures. Every Vorentine is raised with equal opportunities. But without love, Marcus said quietly. Without love, Zatrell agreed. She watched as Lily grabbed Marcus's finger and held it tight. Until recently, I believed this was a strength. Then I started observing other species. I watched parents sacrifice everything for offspring. I saw bonds that couldn't be broken. I wondered what we had lost when we chose efficiency over emotion. The food arrived. Marcus tried not to show how hungry he was, but the moment the plate was in front of him, his body betrayed him. His hands shook as he reached for the fork. Eat, Zatrell said gently. There's no shame in hunger. Marcus ate. The food was better than anything he had tasted in months. Between bites, he fed Lily from a jar of baby food that the restaurant had provided. The Empress watched every movement with intense focus. You feed her yourself? Zatrell observed. Don't humans have automated feeding systems? Some do, Marcus said, wiping Lily's mouth with a napkin. But I prefer to do it myself. It's one of the few times during the day when I can focus completely on her. Even when you're exhausted and starving. Especially then. Marcus looked down at his daughter. She's the reason I keep going. When Sarah died, I wanted to give up. But I couldn't. Lily needed me. She still needs me. This bond, Zatrell said slowly. It's irrational. You suffer for it. You endure hardship for it. Yet you wouldn't trade it for anything. No, Marcus said. I wouldn't. Zatrell was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the restaurant buzzed with conversation and the clinking of expensive silverware. Finally, she spoke again. I am 347 years old, Marcus Chen. I have ruled an empire spanning 12 star systems. I have wealth beyond measure. I have power that most beings can only dream of. She paused, and Marcus saw something vulnerable flash across her alien features. But I have never experienced what you have. I have never felt this bond you describe. I have never known what it means to love something more than yourself. Marcus didn't know what to say. He had assumed all species loved their children. It had never occurred to him that something so fundamental to humanity could be alien to others. I want to understand, Zatrell continued. I want to learn what my people lost. That's why I approached you in that store. When I saw you about to spend your last currency on nappies for your daughter, I saw something my species hasn't seen in millennia. I saw love. Why does it matter? Marcus asked. You said your people are successful and advanced. Maybe they don't need love. Perhaps, Zatrell said. But I have watched my people for centuries, Marcus. We have everything, yet we have nothing. We live for hundreds of years, but we never truly live. We exist in comfort and efficiency, but we don't experience joy. Not like what I see in your eyes when you look at your daughter. Lily chose that moment to laugh, a pure sound of happiness that rang through the expensive restaurant. Several aliens turned to stare at the noise. Zatrell smiled. That sound. We don't have that sound on my world anymore. Children are raised in silence and order. They're taught to be efficient and logical from the moment they can understand language. That sounds lonely, Marcus said. It is, Zatrell admitted. I didn't realize how lonely until I started studying other species, so I have a proposal for you, Marcus Chen. Marcus tensed. He had known this was coming. The free meal, the interest in humanity, all of it had a price. I want to employ you, Zatrell said. Not as a cargo hauler. As a teacher, I want to learn about human parenting. I want to observe how you raise your daughter. I want to understand this bond that makes you sacrifice everything. You want to study us like lab rats, Marcus said flatly. No, Zatrell said firmly. I want to learn from you. There's a difference. I will provide you with everything you need. Comfortable housing, food, medical care for both you and Lily. A salary that will let you save for her future. In return, you simply let me visit regularly and answer my questions about being a father. Marcus stared at her. Why? What do you get out of this? Hope, Zatrell said simply. Hope that maybe my people can rediscover what they lost. Hope that efficiency isn't the only path forward. Hope that it's not too late for us to remember how to love. Marcus looked down at Lily. She had fallen asleep against his chest, her tiny hand still clutching his finger. He thought about their cramped room, the constant worry about money, the exhaustion that never seemed to end, but he also thought about his freedom, his independence. What if this was a trap? What if the Empress had darker motives than she claimed? I need time to think, Marcus said. Of course, Zatrell said. She placed a data chip on the table. This contains my contact information and a credit chip loaded with enough currency to cover a month of expenses for you and Lily. Whether you accept my offer or not, the currency is yours. Consider it payment for this conversation. Marcus wanted to refuse again. His pride demanded it. But he looked at his sleeping daughter and swallowed his pride. I'll think about it, he said. That's all I ask, Zatrell said. She stood, and Marcus was reminded of how tall and imposing she was. Thank you for dinner, Marcus Chen, and thank you for showing me something beautiful. She left, gliding through the restaurant like a queen. Marcus sat alone with his sleeping daughter, the credit chip burning a hole in his pocket, and wondered what he had just gotten himself into. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He lay in his narrow bed, listening to Lily breathe softly in her crib, turning the credit chip over and over in his hands. The small piece of plastic represented more money than he had seen in months. It represented safety, stability, a chance for Lily to have the life she deserved. It also represented a choice that scared him more than anything. By morning, word had spread through the station. Marcus arrived at his cargo loading job to find his supervisor, a gruff alien with too many tentacles, waiting for him. Chen, the supervisor growled. Is it true? Did you have dinner with Empress Zatrell last night? Yes, Marcus said carefully. How did you know? Everyone knows. The Empress of Vorentin doesn't have dinner with cargo haulers. What does she want with you? Marcus shrugged, trying to appear casual. She was curious about humans. That's all. The supervisor's tentacles twitched with doubt, but he said nothing more. Throughout the shift, Marcus felt the stares of his coworkers. Humans and aliens alike whispered when they thought he couldn't hear. During his lunch break, Marcus received a message on his personal device. It was from Commander Sarah Rodriguez, the human liaison officer on the station. She wanted to see him immediately. Marcus strapped Lily into her carrier and made his way to the human liaison office. Commander Rodriguez was a stern woman in her 50s who had been in space longer than Marcus had been alive. She gestured for him to sit. "I heard about your dinner with the Empress," she said without preamble. "I need to know what's going on, Marcus. Are you in some kind of trouble?" "No, ma'am," Marcus said. "At least I don't think so." He explained the situation. The meeting in the store, the dinner, the Empress's proposal. Commander Rodriguez listened with a deepening frown. "This is unusual," she said when he finished. "The Vorentines are one of the most powerful species in the galactic community. If their Empress has taken an interest in you, it could have political implications." "I'm just a cargo hauler," Marcus protested. "I'm not political." "You're a human," Rodriguez said. "Earth has only been part of the galactic community for 3 years. We're still proving ourselves. If you become some kind of ambassador, even an unofficial one, it reflects on all of us." "I haven't decided to accept her offer," Marcus said. "But you're considering it." Rodriguez leaned back in her chair. "I can't tell you what to do, Marcus. This is your choice. But be careful. Interspecies politics can be dangerous. The Vorentines may seem friendly, but they're still aliens. They don't think like we do." Marcus returned to his tiny quarters that evening with his mind more conflicted than ever. He fed Lily her dinner, gave her a bath in the small sink, and put her to bed. Then he sat in the darkness and tried to decide what to do. The decision was made for him 3 days later. Lily developed a fever. It started small, just a slight warmth, but by the next morning she was burning up. Marcus called the station medical center, but they told him it would be a 2-day wait for an appointment. Non-emergency cases were always backlogged. Marcus held his screaming daughter and felt helpless rage build in his chest. On Earth, she would have been seen immediately, but here, on this station in the middle of space, humans were a low priority. He pulled out the data chip Zatrell had given him. His fingers trembled as he activated the communication link. The Empress answered immediately. Her face appeared on his small screen, those galaxy eyes focusing on him with concern. "Marcus Chen," she said. "Is something wrong?" "My daughter is sick," Marcus said, hating how desperate he sounded. "She has a fever, and I can't get her medical care for 2 days." "I know I have no right to ask, but—" "Where are you?" Zatrell interrupted. "My quarters. Section 7, room 412. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Keep her comfortable." The connection ended. Marcus held Lily close, rocking her gently and whispering that everything would be okay. He hoped he wasn't lying. True to her word, Empress Zatrell arrived exactly 10 minutes later. She swept into his cramped quarters with 2 medical professionals behind her, aliens Marcus had never seen before. "Let them examine her," Zatrell said gently. Marcus reluctantly handed Lily to one of the doctors. The medical professionals worked quickly, scanning her with devices that hummed and glowed. After a few minutes, the lead doctor spoke to Zatrell in their own language. "It's a common childhood illness," Zatrell translated for Marcus. "Not serious, but uncomfortable. They're giving her medicine now. The fever should break within the hour." Marcus felt his legs give out. He sat heavily on his bed, relief washing over him so intensely it hurt. The doctors finished their work and left, bowing respectfully to the Empress. Zatrell stayed. She looked around Marcus's tiny quarters, taking in the cramped space, the makeshift crib, the single cooking unit. "You live here," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Marcus said. "It's not much, but it's ours." Lily, already feeling better from the medicine, reached toward Zatrell. The Empress looked startled. She wants you to hold her, Marcus said. I don't know how, Zatrell admitted. For the first time since Marcus had met her, she looked uncertain. Just support her head and back, Marcus instructed. She won't break. Carefully, awkwardly, Zatrell took Lily in two of her forearms. The little girl looked up at the tall alien with curiosity rather than fear. She reached up with one tiny hand and touched Zatrell's blue face. Something changed in the Empress's expression. Her eyes widened, her breath caught. She stood perfectly still as if afraid to disturb the moment. This is it, she whispered. This is what I've been missing, this feeling. That's trust, Marcus said softly. She trusts you. That's how children show love. Zatrell looked at Marcus, and he was shocked to see tears forming in her purple eyes. I've lived for over 300 years. I've ruled empires. I've commanded fleets. But I've never felt anything like this. That's because you've never let yourself be vulnerable, Marcus said. Love requires vulnerability. You have to risk being hurt to feel it. Lily yawned and snuggled against Zatrell's chest, apparently deciding the tall alien was perfectly fine to nap on. The Empress looked down at her with wonder. I want to accept your offer, Marcus said suddenly. I want to work with you. Not just for the money, though that matters, but because I think you're right. I think your people need to remember this. And if Lily and I can help with that, then we should. Zatrell carefully transferred Lily back to Marcus. Are you certain? There will be scrutiny. People will talk. Some will say you're exploiting me for wealth. Others will say I'm exploiting you for some political game. Let them talk, Marcus said with more confidence than he felt. I just watched my daughter suffer because I couldn't afford proper medical care fast enough. I'm tired of barely surviving. I want Lily to have a real life, and if teaching you about being a human father can make that happen, then that's what I'll do. Very well, Zatrell said. She straightened, becoming regal and imperial once more. I'll arrange new quarters for you. Larger, more comfortable. I'll provide a medical plan so Lily always has access to care, and I'll pay you a salary that will allow you to save for her future. What do you get in return? Marcus asked. Access, Zatrell said. I visit regularly, I observe, I learn, I ask questions, and you answer honestly, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Marcus looked down at his daughter, now sleeping peacefully against his chest. I can do that. Then we have an agreement. Zatrell moved toward the door, then paused. Marcus Chen, you may have just changed the future of my entire species. I hope you understand the weight of what you've agreed to. I understand that my daughter will be taken care of, Marcus said. That's enough for me. After Zatrell left, Marcus held Lily close and wondered what he had just set in motion. But for the first time in months, he felt hope instead of despair. Maybe this alien empress's interest in humanity was strange. Maybe there would be complications he couldn't foresee. But Lily was healthy. She would have the care she needed. And sometimes, that was all that mattered. Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead and allowed himself to believe that things might actually work out. 4 months passed like a dream Marcus kept expecting to wake up from. His new quarters were 5 times larger than his old room, with actual walls separating the bedroom from the living space. Lily had her own room now, painted with stars and moons that glowed softly at night. Marcus had a real kitchen, a comfortable bed, and windows that showed actual views of space instead of gray metal walls. More importantly, he had time. Zatrell had arranged for him to work as a cultural consultant instead of a cargo hauler. The pay was better, and the hours actually allowed him to be a father, instead of just a person who occasionally saw his daughter between shifts. Zatrell visited 3 times a week. At first, the visits were formal and awkward. She would arrive with her guards and assistants, sitting stiffly on the furniture while watching Marcus and Lily interact. She asked clinical questions about feeding schedules and sleep patterns, taking notes like a scientist studying interesting specimens. But slowly, things changed. It started when Lily took her first steps. Marcus had been cleaning up after lunch when Lily pulled herself up on the couch. He glanced over and saw her standing, wobbling, determination on her tiny face. "Zatrell," Marcus called out. The Empress was in the kitchen, studying how Marcus prepared food. "Come here, quickly." Zatrell rushed over, all four arms moving in agitation. "What's wrong? Is she injured?" "Watch," Marcus whispered. Lily took one shaky step, then another, then she tumbled forward. Marcus caught her just before she hit the floor, and Lily laughed with pure joy. "She's learning to walk," Marcus said, grinning. "This is one of the big moments." Zatrell stared, transfixed. "She could have fallen." "You allowed her to risk injury." "That's how learning works," Marcus explained. "We have to let them try and fail. If I caught her every time, she'd never learn to walk on her own. But you were ready to catch her if she fell too far." "Always," Marcus said. "That's the balance. You let them explore and take risks, but you're always there to catch them when they need you." Zatrell was quiet for a long moment. "My people would never allow this. Vorantine offspring are taught to walk in controlled environments with safety restraints. They never fall." "But do they ever really learn?" Marcus asked gently. "Or do they just follow a program?" "I'm beginning to see the difference," Zatrell admitted. After that, the visits became less formal. Zatrell started arriving without her guards. She would sit on the floor with Lily, letting the toddler climb on her like she was just another interesting piece of furniture. She learned to hold a bottle and read picture books in her musical voice, even though she didn't understand half the Earth stories. Marcus watched the changes in the Empress with fascination. She smiled more. She laughed when Lily did something silly. Once, when Lily hugged her leg and called her Auntie Za, Marcus saw the Empress's eyes fill with tears. "She thinks you're family now," Marcus explained. "Family," Zatrell repeated. "We don't use that word on my world. We have genetic progenitors and offspring, but not family." "Maybe that's something you should change," Marcus suggested. Word of their arrangement spread through the galactic community. Other humans on the station started treating Marcus differently. Some thought he was doing something important. Others thought he had sold out, becoming a pet for a rich alien. Marcus ignored both groups. He was doing what he needed to do for his daughter. Then the articles started appearing. Galactic news networks picked up the story of the human father teaching the Vorantine Empress about parenting. Some species found it heartwarming, others found it scandalous. The Vorantines, particularly the traditional faction, were furious. "They're calling it a weakness," Zatrell explained during one visit. She looked tired in a way Marcus had never seen before. "The Council of Traditionalists is demanding I stop wasting time on primitive emotional studies and focus on proper imperial duties." "Are you going to stop?" Marcus asked, though his heart sank at the thought. "No," Zatrell said firmly. "They don't understand what I've learned here. They don't see what I see when I watch you with Lily." "What do you see?" Marcus asked. Zatrell watched Lily playing with her blocks on the floor. "I see strength, real strength. Not the strength to command or conquer, but the strength to care for someone completely dependent on you. To sacrifice sleep and comfort and ease for someone who can't thank you or repay you. That's a kind of power my people have forgotten exists." "It's not power," Marcus said. "It's just love." "Maybe love is the greatest power," Zatrell said softly. 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. Marcus was playing with Lily in the park area of the station when station security approached him. There were 4 officers, all armed, all looking grim. "Marcus Chen," the lead officer said, "you're under arrest for fraud and exploitation of a galactic official." "What?" Marcus felt the world tilt. "I haven't done anything wrong." You've been receiving money and benefits from Empress Zatrel under false pretenses, the officer said. The Vorentine Traditionalist Council has filed formal charges against you. Those charges are lies, Marcus said, holding Lily close. She started to cry, sensing his fear. That will be determined by the courts. Come with us. They took him to a detention center. They allowed him to keep Lily, at least, putting them in a small room with basic amenities. But they were prisoners. Marcus tried to contact Zatrel, but his communications were blocked. He tried to contact Commander Rodriguez, but got no response. Hours passed. Lily cried, and Marcus felt more helpless than he had since Sarah died. Then the door opened. Zatrel swept in like a storm, her eyes blazing with fury Marcus had never seen before. "This is an outrage," she declared. The security officers behind her looked terrified. "You arrested him without consulting me?" "Your Majesty," one officer stammered. "The charges came from the Traditionalist Council. They said—" "I know what they said," Zatrel interrupted. "They said Marcus Chen was exploiting me. They said I was being manipulated by a primitive species. They said my interest in human parenting was a sign of weakness that endangered the Empire." She moved to where Marcus sat holding Lily. She looked at him, and her expression softened. "They're wrong," she said. "Marcus hasn't exploited me. He's taught me something my people desperately need to learn. He's shown me that emotions aren't weakness, that caring for others isn't inefficiency, that love is the strongest force in the universe." She turned back to the officers. "Release him, now." "But Your Majesty, the charges are dismissed," Zatrel said with absolute authority. "By my order as Empress of Vorentine. If the Traditionalist Council has a problem with that, they can bring it before the full Imperial Assembly." The officers scrambled to comply. Within minutes, Marcus and Lily were free. Outside the detention center, Marcus turned to Zatrel. "Thank you, but you've made enemies of your own people for me." "Not for you," Zatrel corrected. "For what you represent. For the hope that my species can change." She smiled, tired but determined. "Tomorrow. I'm addressing the Imperial Assembly. I'm proposing reforms to how we raise our offspring. I'm suggesting we study human parenting models and implement similar programs in Vorentine society." "They'll fight you," Marcus said. "I know," Zatrel agreed. "But I've spent 300 years following the old ways. I think it's time to try something new, something that might actually make my people happy instead of just efficient." Lily reached out from Marcus's arms toward Zatrel. The Empress took her gently, holding her with practiced ease now. "This," Zatrel said, looking at the little girl, "is worth fighting for. Even if the entire council opposes me, even if I risk everything, this feeling is worth it." Marcus smiled. "Welcome to parenthood. That's exactly how it feels." Zatrel laughed and Lily laughed with her, and Marcus realized that something impossible had happened. An alien empress had learned to love. 3 years after Marcus bought Nappies with his last coin, he stood in front of a building that didn't exist when he first came to Meridian Station. The sign above the entrance read, "The Family Center," in 12 different languages, representing the major species of the galactic community. Lily, now 4 years old, pulled at his hand. "Daddy, come on! My friends are waiting!" Marcus smiled and let his daughter lead him inside. The center had been his idea, but Zatrel had made it real. She funded the entire project, sparing no expense to create a place where species from across the galaxy could come to learn about family and parenting. Inside, the center was alive with activity. Alien children of a dozen species played together in the recreation area. Parents attended workshops on different cultural approaches to raising offspring. Counselors offered support to families struggling with the challenges of life in space. Marcus had thought his days of working double shifts were over, but he quickly discovered that running the center was more demanding than hauling cargo had ever been. The difference was that this work mattered. This work changed lives. "Marcus Chen," a voice called out. Marcus turned to see a Vorentine couple approaching him. They looked nervous, their blue skin flickering with uncertainty. "We heard about the center from the Empress's announcement. We want to learn how to connect with our offspring." This happened more and more lately. Vorentine parents, curious about what their Empress had discovered, came to the center seeking something they didn't know they were missing. Marcus had trained a staff to help them, but he still met with families personally when he could. "Of course," Marcus said warmly. "Let me introduce you to some of our family counselors. They can help you understand the basics of bonding with your children." He spent the next hour working with the Vorentine couple, answering their questions and showing them simple ways to connect with their offspring. It was slow work. Centuries of cultural conditioning couldn't be undone in a single conversation, but he saw the hope in their eyes, and that made it worthwhile. Later that afternoon, Zatrell arrived for her regular visit. She came alone now, without guards or assistants. In the 3 years since their first meeting, she had changed in ways Marcus never expected. She smiled more easily. She moved with less rigid formality. She had learned to hug, something Vorentines never did before. "Auntie Za!" Lily squealed, running toward the Empress. Zatrell caught her and lifted her up with 2 of her arms, spinning her around while Lily giggled with delight. Marcus watched them and felt his heart swell. This unlikely friendship, this impossible bond between a human child and an alien Empress, had changed everything. "How was the Imperial Assembly meeting?" Marcus asked once Lily had run off to play with her friends. Zatrell's smile faded slightly. "Difficult. The traditionalists are still resisting the reforms, but I'm making progress. 20% of Vorentine families have now enrolled in parental bonding programs. It's slow, but it's happening." "Change always is slow," Marcus said, "especially cultural change." "I know," Zatrell said, "but sometimes I get impatient. I see what you have with Lily, and I want that for all my people. I want them to understand what they've been missing." "You're doing important work," Marcus assured her. "Even if it takes generations to fully change Vorentine culture, you've started something that can't be stopped now." They walked through the center together, observing the different programs in action. In one room, parents from 5 different species shared stories about their children's first words. In another, a workshop taught conflict resolution techniques for families. In the playroom, children of different species played together without caring about their differences. "This is what the galaxy needs," Zatrell said quietly. "Not more treaties or trade agreements. We need this. We need to remember that we're all just beings trying to care for the next generation." "That's very human of you to say," Marcus teased gently. "Perhaps I'm becoming more human," Zatrell said with a smile. "Or perhaps humans are just good at recognizing universal truths." They found a quiet corner where they could talk privately. This had become their routine. After Zatrell spent time with Lily and observed the center's operations, she and Marcus would discuss what she had learned. "I have something to tell you," Zatrell said. "The Galactic Council is considering recommending the family center model for implementation on other stations and colonies. Your idea might spread across the entire galaxy." Marcus felt stunned. "Really? That's incredible." "It's more than incredible," Zatrell said. "It's proof that humans have something valuable to offer the galactic community. Not advanced technology or military might, but emotional wisdom. You're teaching us all how to be better beings." "I'm just a father trying to do right by his daughter," Marcus said. "That's what makes you perfect for this," Zatrell replied. "You never set out to change the galaxy. You just wanted to take care of Lily. But in doing that, you showed me and countless others what really matters in life." Marcus thought back to that day 3 years ago when he stood in a store with his last 5 credits, desperate and exhausted, trying to buy nappies for his daughter. He had felt like a failure then. He had thought he was at the end of his rope. He never could have imagined where that moment would lead. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "That day in the store when you first saw me, what made you approach me? What made you decide to help?" Zatrell considered the question carefully. "I saw something in your eyes. Desperation, yes, but also fierce determination. You were at your lowest point, yet you were still fighting for your daughter. I've commanded armies and ruled planets, Marcus, but I've never had anything worth fighting for like that. I wanted to understand what could give someone that kind of strength." "And do you understand now?" Marcus asked. "Yes," Zatrell said softly. "It's love. Simple, complicated, irrational, beautiful love. It makes you vulnerable and strong at the same time. It gives you purpose beyond yourself." Lily ran up to them, breathless from playing. "Daddy! Auntie Za! Come see what we built. It's a rocket ship." They followed her to where a group of children had constructed an impressive tower out of building blocks. Human, Vorentine, and alien children worked together, proudly showing off their creation. "This is the future," Zatrell said, watching the children play. Different species working together, learning from each other, bonding despite their differences. And it started because one human father loved his daughter enough to spend his last coin on nappies. Marcus laughed. "When you put it that way, it sounds much more dramatic than it was." "But it's true," Zatrell insisted. "Great changes often start with small acts of love. You loved Lily enough to sacrifice everything for her. That love taught me something my species had forgotten. And now that knowledge is spreading across the galaxy." As the afternoon turned to evening, Marcus helped Lily say goodbye to her friends. Zatrell walked them back to their quarters, as she often did. "Will you come for dinner this week?" Marcus asked. "I'm making Earth food, spaghetti. Lily loves it." "I would be honored," Zatrell said. She bent down to Lily's level. "Be good for your father, little one." "I'm always good," Lily said with the absolute confidence of a 4-year-old. After Zatrell left, Marcus tucked Lily into bed. She yawned and snuggled into her blankets, the ones decorated with stars that Zatrell had given her for her birthday. "Daddy," Lily said sleepily, "why does everyone say you're important?" "They do?" Marcus asked, surprised. "Uh-huh. My teacher says you're teaching the whole galaxy about families." "Are you really that important?" Marcus thought about how to answer. "I'm not important, sweetie, but what I do is important. I take care of you, and I help other parents learn to take care of their children. That matters more than being famous or powerful." "Because families matter?" Lily asked. "Exactly," Marcus said, kissing her forehead. "Because families matter most of all." As Lily drifted off to sleep, Marcus stood by her window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Vorentine parents were learning to bond with their children. Somewhere out there, species that had forgotten about family were remembering. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was slowly changing, becoming a little warmer and more connected. And it had all started because he spent his last coin on nappies and an alien empress saw something worth learning. Marcus smiled and whispered into the darkness. "Thank you, Sarah. Our daughter is teaching the galaxy about love. I think you'd be proud." The stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if in agreement. Marcus returned to his comfortable living room, picked up the photo of Sarah that he kept on the table, and felt at peace. He was no longer the desperate cargo hauler struggling to survive. He was still just a father doing his best for his daughter. But now he was also something more. Proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or weapons or grand ambitions. It was the simple, powerful ability to love and care for each other. And that, Marcus had learned, was the most human thing of all.